Laughter echoed in the council chamber at the human army, but it turned to stunned silence once the aliens realized the humans were from Earth. In the distant future, an emergency meeting was hastily convened by the Galactic Council on planet Xandar. The large chamber was packed with a diverse array of alien species. Unexpectedly, the door burst open. Zephyr, a Gorn diplomat covered in green scales, stormed in, his reptilian face contorted with rage. The Gorn Empire was attacked by an unknown species from some primitive planet called Earth, Zephyr shouted. He pounded the table with a clawed fist, leaving deep gouges in the metal. Confused murmurs rippled through the gathered aliens. No one had heard of this backwater world before. "You must send your most elite warriors to aid us, to crush this threat," the Gorn demanded of the other races. To everyone's shock, a lone human stood from his seat, the only representative of Earth present. Battle-hardened soldier Brian Simmons had a scar slashed across one eye. The various aliens burst into mocking laughter at the sight of the single human. How could one man make any difference against the powerful Gorn? Brian was outnumbered and outmatched. The human simply gave a grim smile. "Don't underestimate us. We're not just any humans, we're from Earth." The laughter stopped abruptly. A chill ran through the chamber. These aliens were about to learn the hard way, to never mess with the humans from Earth. The Gorn snarled at Brian, baring razor teeth. "Your species will be crushed, wiped from the galaxy. The Gorn are coming for your planet. What can you possibly do, human?" If Brian couldn't find a way to stop the Gorn here and now, his entire species was doomed. No one else even knew about the imminent alien invasion bearing down on Earth. It was up to him alone to save humanity. The fate of billions rested on this one man's shoulders. Brian cracked his knuckles, his eyes hard as steel. "Watch me." The Galactic Council debated. Some argued that the Gorn deserved help from the strongest among them, but others were wary of provoking these mysterious humans further. Finally, a compromise was struck. A team of elite warriors would go, but only to observe and gather intel, not to engage in combat. The team was quickly assembled: a scarred Klingon, a tentacled Hanar, and a blue-skinned Asari commando, all hardened veterans. Brian strode into the hangar, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. "I'm coming too," he stated bluntly. The Asari narrowed her eyes. "This is a council operation. We don't need a human tagging along." Brian met her gaze. "My people are already involved, and I have relevant expertise." "It's too risky," a council member protested. But Brian was already boarding the sleek ship. The team leader sighed and waved him on. As they soared through the stars, the others regarded Brian suspiciously. He kept to himself, checking his strange gear. Finally, the Hanar broke the tense silence. "This one is curious. Why would humans attack a Gorn colony?" Brian looked up. "We didn't, at least not officially." "Explain," the Klingon grunted. Brian hesitated. Then, "For years our top scientists have been developing cutting-edge weapons and ships in secret, far beyond anything the Council races have. We call it the Vanguard Initiative." The others looked stunned. The Asari leaned forward. "But why keep it hidden?" Brian's face was grim. "Earth has learned to be cautious. We're newcomers on the galactic stage. Revealing our true strength too soon could make us targets, so we stay quiet and prepare, just in case." They dropped out of warp, but instead of a battle they found only devastation. The proud Gorn capital had been reduced to rubble and ash. Zephyr let out an anguished roar at the sight. "Find those humans! Hunt them down!" he snarled. Brian raised a hand. "Wait, we should search the ruins first, look for survivors and clues." Zephyr looked mutinous but relented. They picked their way through the debris. The Klingon held up a chunk of melted metal. "These blast marks, like nothing I've seen before." Brian knelt and brushed aside some ash. There, a small device blinking red, and unmistakably human. He turned it over in his hands, mind racing. Then it clicked. "This isn't an invasion," he said slowly. "It's a rescue." The others looked at him, confused. Brian stood, holding up the device. "The humans who did this. They're not attacking. They're tracking. This is a locator beacon." Zephyr grabbed Brian. "Track them where?" Brian met his frenzied gaze steadily. "To your Gorn secret prison camps, where you're holding human captives." Zephyr released him, eyes wide. "That's absurd. Lies." "Is it? This device is transmitting coordinates. I bet if we go there we'll find the human strike team and the prisoners they came to save." The Klingon crossed his arms. "We have our orders. We're here to help the Gorn, not chase human conspiracy theories." Brian looked around the circle of faces. "Look, I know you don't trust me, but I'm telling you, this is a rescue op. The Gorn are up to something sinister. We have to find out what." The team was silent, considering. Finally, the Asari spoke. "I say we split up. Part of the team goes with Brian to check out these coordinates. The rest stay to help the Gorn survivors." Brian nodded grimly. "Okay, let's move out." Zix scuttled up the compound wall, his many legs finding easy purchase on the rough surface. He peered over the top, compound eyes scanning the courtyard below. "No patrols in sight. We're clear to move." He clicked over the comm. Brian and Grok emerged from the shadows, the hulking reptilian carrying a large crate marked with Earth military insignia. Brian pulled out a small device and tapped a series of commands. The crate hissed open, revealing an array of advanced weapons and tactical gear. "Take your pick, but remember, stealth is key. We don't want to alert the whole base," Brian warned as they armed themselves. They crept through the darkened halls, guided by the homing beacon. As they neared the cell block, the stench of blood and fear grew stronger. Zix hacked the lock with a few quick taps on his wrist computer, and the door slid open. Inside, rows of cells stretched into the darkness. Emaciated humans huddled in the corners, their eyes hollow. Brian's heart clenched at the sight. These were his people, his fellow soldiers, broken and abused. A groan drew his attention to a nearby cell. A man lay there, his once strong body ravaged by torture, but even through the grime and blood, Brian recognized him instantly. "Marcus," he whispered, his voice cracking. The man stirred, blinking up at him in confusion. "Brian, is that really you?" Brian gripped the bars, his knuckles white. "I thought you were dead. We all did." Marcus coughed, a wet hacking sound. "The Gorn, they wanted information about Earth's defenses, our weapons. I didn't break, but others." Brian's jaw tightened. "We're getting you out of here, all of you." Zix and Grok set to work, unlocking cells and helping the weakened prisoners to their feet. Some were too far gone, their bodies giving out after years of abuse, but most were able to stand, their eyes burning with a newfound hope. Suddenly alarms blared throughout the compound. Red lights flashed in the halls as a robotic voice announced, "Prisoner escape in progress. All units to cell block A." Brian cursed. They'd been discovered. "Change of plans, we're going to have to fight our way out of here." He tossed weapons to the able-bodied soldiers, who caught them with grim determination. They might be weak, but they were still warriors. The sound of heavy boots echoed down the hall, growing louder by the second. A platoon of heavily armed Gorn guards rounded the corner, their reptilian faces twisted with rage. "Open fire," Brian yelled, ducking behind a pillar as a hail of plasma bolts filled the air. The human soldiers joined the fight, their aim shaky but their resolve unwavering. Grok roared a battle cry and charged forward, his massive fists pulverizing Gorn armor like tinfoil. Zix darted between the cells, his agility allowing him to get behind the guards and take them out with precise shots to the gaps in their armor. But more Gorn poured in from every direction, threatening to overwhelm them through sheer numbers. Marcus grabbed Brian's arm, his grip surprisingly strong. "The Gorn, this was all a trap. They knew Earth would send a rescue team. They wanted to capture our best and brightest, to learn our secrets." Brian's mind raced. They couldn't fight forever. They needed an escape route. His eyes fell on a nearby console, a plan forming. "Zix, can you hack into their systems? We need to disable the defenses and cut off communications. The insectoid nodded, scuttling over to the terminal and plugging in. His claws flew over the keys as he worked to break through the encryption. Brian turned to Grok. We need a diversion. Something big and loud to draw their attention. The reptilian grinned, his teeth gleaming. Leave it to me. He lumbered off down a side passage, the floor shaking with each step. Brian gathered the soldiers, herding them towards the exit. We're going to steal one of their transport ships. It's our only chance. Marcus raised an eyebrow. And then what? The Gorn will never let us leave the planet alive. Brian's face was grim. If we can get a message to Earth, warn them about the Gorn's plans, then maybe this won't all be for nothing. An explosion rocked the compound, followed by the roar of Grok's battle rage. The guards turned, momentarily distracted. Brian saw his chance. Now, move out. The ragged band of soldiers and spies raced through the halls, following Zix's lead. They burst out into the open air, the night sky above them. In the distance, the outline of a Gorn transport ship loomed. But between them and freedom stood an army of Gorn, their weapons aimed and ready. Brian raised his rifle, preparing for the fight of his life. They had come too far to fail now. Plasma bolts sizzled past Brian's head as he ducked behind a crate. Marcus crouched next to him, firing back at the advancing Gorn. The escaped prisoners huddled behind them, clutching their stolen weapons with shaky hands. Suddenly, Brian's calm crackled to life. Brian, this is Zephyr. I have crucial information. Brian's eyes widened. He signaled for Marcus to cover him as he answered the call. Zephyr, what's going on? The Gorn's voice was tense. I've been working with a rebel faction within the Empire. We oppose the Emperor's cruel methods. I've sabotaged the camp's defenses and arranged a diversion to aid your escape. Hope surged in Brian's chest, but Zephyr's next words chilled him to the bone. The Emperor himself is on his way here. He's determined to capture you and your team personally. Brian cursed under his breath. They had to move fast. He relayed the information to Marcus, who nodded grimly. We need to get these people to the transport ship, now. They fought their way through the compound, Zix and Grok holding off the guards with a barrage of laser fire and brute strength. The humans raced towards the hangar, their hearts pounding. As they neared the ship, a fresh wave of Gorn soldiers poured into the bay. Brian and Marcus exchanged a glance. Get everyone on board. We'll hold them off, Marcus said, his jaw set. The brothers stood side by side, their weapons blazing as they covered the prisoners' retreat. One by one, the humans clambered into the transport, Zix and Grok bringing up the rear. That's everyone, let's go, Zix shouted over the din of battle. Brian and Marcus sprinted up the ramp, plasma bolts scorching the ground at their heels. The door sealed shut behind them, and Brian leapt into the pilot's seat. His fingers flew over the unfamiliar controls, drawing on his knowledge of Earth's advanced technology. The ship shuddered as it lifted off, the Gorn soldiers' shots pinging off its armored hull. Brian activated the stealth systems, and the transport shimmered out of sight. For a moment, silence reigned in the cockpit. Then Marcus let out a low whistle. I can't believe we made it out of there. But their relief was short-lived. A massive shape loomed out of the darkness, dwarfing their tiny ship. The Gorn Emperor's battleship hung before them, its weapons already locking on. Surrender now, humans, a deep voice boomed over the comm. You cannot hope to outrun the might of the Gorn Empire. Brian's hands tightened on the controls. Surrender was not an option, but what could they do against a ship of that size? His comm beeped and Zephyr's voice filled the cockpit. Brian, I have an idea, but it's risky. Brian glanced at Marcus, who nodded. We're listening. Zephyr quickly outlined his plan. If Brian could get close enough to the battleship, Zephyr and his rebel allies could sneak aboard and sabotage it from within. But they would only have one shot. Brian took a deep breath. It was a crazy plan, but it was their only chance. He turned to his brother, determination etched on his face. Let's do this. The transport darted towards the looming battleship, Brian's piloting skills put to the ultimate test. The Emperor's ship opened fire, but he wove through the barrage with dizzying speed. As they neared the hull, Brian saw a small hatch slide open. Zephyr and a group of Gorn rebels slipped inside, their movements quick and furtive. Now it was up to them. Brian pulled the transport into a sharp climb, drawing the battleship's fire away from the infiltration team. Alarms blared as the Emperor realized what was happening, but it was too late. A series of explosions ripped through the battleship's engines, sending it listing to one side. Brian seized his chance, aiming the transport's weapons at the vulnerable spot. The human guns, powered by advanced Earth technology, tore through the weakened armor like paper. The battleship shuddered, secondary explosions blossoming along its length. Brian held his breath, watching as the once mighty ship began to break apart. Had they done it? Had they actually taken down the Gorn Emperor? Time was running out. Zephyr and his rebel infiltration team moved silently through the bowels of the Emperor's battleship, placing charges at critical junctures. The Gorn traitor tapped his wrist communicator. Charges set. 15 minutes to detonation. On the bridge, alarms blared as the Emperor spun to face the door, plasma rifle in hand. It burst open, the twisted metal flying inward. Brian and Marcus stormed through, experimental Earth weapons blazing. The bridge crew fell under the onslaught, their reptilian bodies shredded by the advanced munitions. Brian leveled his rifle at the Emperor. "It's over. Surrender now." The Gorn ruler laughed, a rasping, alien sound. "You're too late, human. My forces are already on their way to your precious Earth. Soon, your pathetic species will be extinct or enslaved." Marcus snarled and squeezed his trigger, but the Emperor was too fast. He dodged the shot and lunged, knocking the gun from Marcus's hands. They grappled, rolling across the floor in a tangle of green scales and blood. Suddenly the ship rocked as Zephyr's explosives detonated far below. Consoles erupted in showers of sparks, and the lights flickered ominously. The Emperor used the distraction to break free, scrabbling for a fallen weapon. But Brian was on him in an instant. They traded blows, fists, and feet smashing into flesh and bone. The Emperor was strong, his hide thick, but he was no match for Brian's fury. The human drove his fist into the Gorn's throat, crushing his windpipe. As the Emperor fell, gasping and twitching, Brian turned to help Marcus up, but his heart stopped. Marcus lay on the deck, a jagged piece of shrapnel jutting from his chest. Crimson stained his uniform, spreading in a growing pool. Brian gathered his brother in his arms, cradling his head. "Stay with me, Marcus. We'll get you out of here, get you patched up." Marcus coughed, flecks of blood speckling his lips. "No time," he wheezed. "The Gorn. They've sent an advance force, infiltrated Earth. You have to warn them." Tears blurred Brian's vision as he gripped his brother's hand. "I will, I swear it." Marcus's eyes fluttered closed, his breath rattling in his ruined chest. "Give 'em hell, little brother." And then he was gone, his body going limp in Brian's arms. For a long moment Brian knelt there, grief and rage warring within him. Then he stood, his eyes hard as flint. "Zix, Grok, gather the survivors, we're leaving." They raced through the crumbling ship, dodging explosions and falling debris. The Gorn craft shuddered and groaned, the Emperor's death throes mirroring the battleships. At last they reached the hangar, piling into a transport shuttle. Brian's hands flew over the controls as he initiated the launch sequence. The hangar doors crumpled inward, the vacuum of space sucking at the shuttle. Then they were free, rocketing away from the doomed ship. In the cockpit, Brian hailed the Galactic Council. His face, streaked with grime and blood, filled the view screen. "This is Lieutenant Brian Simmons of Earth. The Gorn Emperor is dead, and his battleship destroyed. But the threat is not over." He took a steadying breath. "The Gorn have launched a secret invasion of Earth. I don't know how many or what weapons they possess. But I know this. We will fight them. We will stop them, no matter the cost." The council members exchanged glances, some fearful, some determined. At last the Asari representative spoke. "Earth will not stand alone. The council races will send aid, and together we will face this enemy." Brian nodded, his jaw set. He gazed out at the stars, the infinite expanse of space. Out there, his home was in peril. His family, his entire species, facing annihilation. But they would not face it alone. Brian glanced back at his ragtag crew, human and alien, soldier and spy, united in purpose. They had struck the first blow against the Gorn. Now, the real battle would begin. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.